Welcome to NDG Live. And I'm your host, Cecil Armstrong, better known as Shuckey Duckey. Now, y'all know that this year is a political year. We've got candidates all across the country, all around the world, but we mostly focus on local candidates. So my guest today is a young man that's running for District House 65, Texas, District House 65. And presently he's in zoning and planning and zoning. And so we want to talk a little bit more about politics, get his insights on it and everything. So now I'm going to introduce you to Detrick DeBurr.
That's right, Detrick.
Detrick.
That's right.
Okay, Detrick DeBurr. Okay, well, welcome to the show. Welcome to NDG Live.
Thank you.
And we're glad to have you and everything. When you came to the door, we kind of recognized each other.
Right.
From an investment standpoint.
Right.
But since you're running for, District 65 for the Texas House, let's get a little bit more about you.
Sure. Fine. Well, like you mentioned, I've been a planning and zoning commissioner in North Texas for almost 20 years, right? If I'm not mistaken, you lived in the DeSoto area back in the day or whatever. Right. I was a planning and zoning commissioner and chaired the commission in Cedar Hill for 9 years. Left there, came over to the colony. I'm in my 9th year there, so it's been 18 years on a planning and zoning commission, but more specifically, just in North Texas. So what I bring to the table is I kind of like been around a while, kind of like behind the scenes, and I've seen how the sausage is made. Okay. So I remember when people were moving to North Texas, left and right, when the companies were coming, when we were, really just starting to build out 121, well, 36, George Bush and 121, right? And really attracting those large companies like Toyota. Toyota North America, or Nebraska Furniture Mart, some of those really, really big ones. So anyway, we have been growing, and we will continue to grow. We're expecting about another 1.6 million people to move into Texas by the end of this decade. And if you want to go backwards, right, if you think about it, there have been more people that have moved to Texas, right, than live in the state of Oklahoma. Just to give you an idea. Now, it's interesting, although Texas is 200 and some odd 70,000 square miles, for the most part, people live in the triangle. They either live in what we're going to call DFW, right, North Texas, or they live in the Houston area, or they live in that corridor with Austin and San Antonio, right? So if you think about it, like it's very, very, very compact areas, and then we have the sprinkles, around what we call rural Texas.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Okay, sure, okay. Now you in planning and zoning.
Yes.
But now you're running for the House.
Right, that's right.
For District 65.
Right.
So that's a different,
it's a very different
angle and different office. So why are you running for District 65?
Right. Well, because planning and zoning is all about planning where we're going over the next 10 or 15 years. And so I had an opportunity and really to look at where Texas will be in, say, 2036. Okay? Think about it now. If your city is going to build more schools, right? If it needs to build highways, then it has to be planned out 10, 15 years in advance, right? It has to be looking at, okay, how many people will be in DeSoto in 2040, right? So we can make the plans today. So anyway, that's the experience that I had 15 years ago.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So now I'm seeing some of the things that we talked about. So for me, what it does is it really helps me to be in a really nice place at the state level, because here's what happens. You have these cities who are managing these things, but then policy is set at the state level. Sales tax determined at the state level, right? And so a lot of times what happens is that there are laws passed, legislation that's passed at the state level that makes it difficult, unfortunately, a lot of times for the cities just simply do what they need to do. Build enough what we're going to call mid-level housing, meaning housing that people can afford, not what I call low income, but then again, not 1 acre lots everywhere too, right? So I bring that special set of, a skill set. That's why I'm running for Texas House, because not a lot of people in Texas House have that kind of background.
Okay, but what are some of the stronger issues that you have outside, because you're still talking planning and zoning, but do you have any other issues outside of planning and zoning that you're passionate about that you want to see?
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you. Great question, because all of this growth, there's some fundamental foundational things that you must have in place. Number one, you have to have well-funded public schools. Okay, regardless of how you're going to grow. Like I said, we're going to see 1.6 million people. they're going to be having children. Those children got to go to school somewhere. We have to educate them, right? So adequately funding public education is huge, and that's extremely interesting. It's interesting how things are working out because our governor right now is really pushing for vouchers, which is, in my opinion, antithetical.
Is antithetical? Why is it
The opposite. Well, first of all, vouchers are I don't know what you know about, but I'll take a really quick. Basically, a voucher program is where you take public funds and allow a parent to send their child to a private school and use those public funds to pay for their private education.
So when a private school be much better than a public education?
Well, it's interesting. Short answer is no. The short answer is no. Now, private schools work in very specific instances, right? Maybe let's say, for example, it's a church-based school. Specific instances. When we're talking about this across the board, right? When we're talking about across the board, public schools by far have outperformed private schools across the board. I'll give you an example.
Public schools have outperformed private schools?
Across the board. Across the board. So my point is you can point to some.
Okay, do you have a statistic?
Oh, absolutely. Let me give you an example. So first of all, let's take a step back because this is a great conversation here.
Right.
Let's look at where the whole voucher system came from. Okay, the first use of vouchers in the United States was right after the passing of Brown versus the Board of Education. Okay, now if you got to think about it, if this is in Virginia, white parents were paying taxes for their kids to go to a school. Black parents were paying taxes for their kids to go to a school. However, those schools were segregated, right? So there was money going to the white schools and there was money going to the black schools. But we both know the same amount of money was not going equally, right? We already know that. That's why they went to the Supreme Court. So what they ended up doing was they say, look, they can't be separate but not equal. Look, you got to fund these black schools just like you fund these white schools, right? You know what they did? They shut the public schools down. They said, we're not going to have no public schools. Virginia did not have public schools in this area, and I can't remember the city right now, for 5 years. So now, kids still got to go to school, right? So what happened is many of the black kids, they just went over to the next county, went over to the next school district. Well, there were schools set up. You can't realize people are still paying into the public schools. So where's the money? So they said, you know what? I want you to give me my cut of my money, and I'm going to send my kid
to
a
private. Cut?
A parent, yeah, right.
The black parents wanted to give their cut so they could send their kids to the private school.
Well, no, just the opposite. White parents, white parents were driving this, obviously, but more importantly, so because a private school can decide who it lets in and who it doesn't.
Okay, now how would you change it? How would you change this dynamic?
Well, I'm glad you said that. Well, first of all, Brown versus the Board of Education changed it, and that is why we fund public schools the way we do today. The voucher system is basically trying to say we're going to go back and try to re-implement that system that did not work. Louisiana, Indiana, District of Columbia, Ohio are all states that looked at what they're going to call small-scale programs, right? Like New Orleans. New Orleans had a really, really good small-scale program, but keep in mind they had Katrina. So they had a problem that they were trying to fix, right? Milwaukee, there was a very, very small voucher program where they took low-income kids and said, okay, we want to take these low-income kids out of this school and put them in this private school, right? However, when they expanded these programs across the board, those private school students did not do as well as the public school on par.
Now I was reading where they had a black kid. They put him in a Harvard type of something. When I say a more sophisticated school,
like gifted and talented or whatever,
something like that. And the guy and the kids wasn't doing too good.
Sure.
And they were saying how the Asians was doing pretty good,
sure,
but the blacks wasn't doing too good.
Right.
And then what they had found out was that when the blacks get the memos and the lectures and things like that stuff, they go and study by themselves.
Right.
When the Asians get the information, they study in a group
together.
And so it was found that when they switched it up and put the students in the group,
they did much better.
Right. So you saying that with this private and public type of a thing,
sure.
And is it more of techniques of training than it is the issue of vouchers, or is a way of teaching? The teachers is not coming up to par, or the teachers are barred down with too much stuff to do to give the kids a great education?
I would say all of the above. Number one, I think we both smart enough to know, we've been around a while, that knows that education and culture go hand in hand. We learn in environments much better when we're comfortable in the environment. I mean, when I grew up, my sixth grade teacher lived across the street.
Right.
I went to church with my third grade teacher, my principal. I rode to school.
Yeah, that sounds like the 60s.
Right. But you know what I'm saying?
60s.
So my point is that, and then
70s.
one teacher taught my big brother. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of cultural connection, and we don't have that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But let me go back to the point of why we need the public schools here. Most kids will still go to public schools.
Most kids.
Period. End of discussion.
Okay.
So since
So most of the funding should go to the public schools and you're not against vouchers. So are you thinking about quotas?
The way I am right now, with the way the voucher system is currently presented, it will not functionally work, period. It will only create either economic segregation,
And that's
racial
because,
segregation, because you're taking public money straight out and giving it to private sources. That never, ever works. In essence, you can't say, you know what, I'm going to get my own personal private security. So what I want you to do is the money that I currently pay for the police, I'd like you to give it back to me and pay for my, no, that's not how it works, right? We all pay into a pot to provide basic services. You know, the county hospital, the road that we drive on, right? We all chip in to pay for this. And the public school is one of these things. It's that thing that at the end of the day, if you cannot afford to send your kid to private school.
Now, I was reading where you want to expand Medicare.
Medicaid, absolutely.
Medicaid, you want to expand Medicaid.
Yes.
So it seems like your issue, your passionate issue is education.
It's education.
Education.
Well, they all work together. Let me tell you why they work together.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, like I said, we're going to have 1.6 million people coming here, right? Children that must get educated. Texas is already 39% Hispanic. It will grow even more Hispanic, and we have what's called a Hispanic achievement gap today. So if you want Texas to get better, you're going to have to ensure that public education for Hispanic children gets better. If you want Texas better, okay? It's not about me personally. I'm just looking at the numbers here. I'm just doing that.
Educated society or educated community helps to bring more economic development, brings more of corporations and stuff into.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the numbers, if the education, if the Hispanic educational achievement gap continues the way it is, it's predicted that Texas will get poorer and poorer and poorer over the next decade. Here's what you'll have. You'll have more children, okay, more people, right, being underemployed. Of course, you'll have some people up at the top, right? You'll have a decent middle class, but the growing part, it won't be the top that's growing, and it won't be the middle that's growing. It'll be the bottom that's growing, right? And what I mean by the bottom is the lowest income educators. And the way you fix that overall, is you ensure that there's a quality education to bolster up the bottom.
Okay, what about the immigration problem that we have right now?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, we got to look at two things. There's border security and immigration, two different things. Okay, our immigration policy flat out is broken, but it's been broken. Barack Obama was dealing with this, right? Donald Trump was dealing. So this is not necessarily what I call a new issue. Now, with that said, as this relates to Texas, I do disagree with how the governor is handling it, because this border is a U.S. border. There are 15 states that have a U.S. border. Okay, so my point is we need to be working with New Mexico, working with Arizona, working with California.
You're saying that Texas do not own the border all by themselves?
Well, my point is that if you try to fix it here and don't fix it in New Mexico, you know what I mean? It's kind of like let's say we neighbors and we got a back fence, right? Now you build up this high fancy fence and I don't have one. Guess what? People just gonna come around my door and still come into your yard. Duh. You see what I'm saying? This is a federal issue. That's why we have federal border patrol. And right now, I think that what we're doing is, quite honestly, I'll just be very candid with you, I think it's a political stunt. Quite honestly, that says we're standing up strong because, like I said, California has a Mexico border. Arizona has a Mexico border. New Mexico has a Mexico border.
They're coming across, though, aren't they?
Huh?
They're coming across. They're coming across.
Yes, they are. But keep in mind, we have had policy for 100 years that says if you can come on American soil, right, you can at least claim asylum. Now, keep in mind, if you want to look at immigration, people are migrating. We have more migration all over the planet. So the issue is real. Okay.
Won't they put a strain on the economics of immigrants
of the United States?
Of Texas. Of Texas. When they put economically wise, want to give you put a strain on the resources of Texas.
Short answer is no. Actually, Texas is sitting on a $33 billion surplus today. Today.
How did they get that surplus?
I mean, some people would argue, some people would say it was good government and what have you. But you have to think about it. There was a lot of federal money that came in with COVID. Okay. But states still issued the money out the way they needed to issue it out or wanted to issue it out. And Texas has always been one of these states that, that we've been very, very tight.
Very conservative
with our spending. And now that money is still there. Right.
Okay. All right. Now, also, I read that you have an issue with guns.
Guns, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, let me start by saying, I am a member of a gun club, right? I believe in rational, reasonable gun legislation, okay? Mm-hmm. I believe in background checks, right? And quite honestly, I grew up hunting, okay? So when I was 12 years old, we all had a rifle. And I remember I was talking to somebody about this, but I grew up in Louisiana. But people would, after hunting at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, you still had to go to school. So it was not uncommon for somebody to have their deer rifle in the truck while they came to school. Get it? However, we don't need an AK-47 to hunt deer. Okay.
So you're banning AK-47.
I mean, well, I would say I won't go so far as to say I'm for banning any type of weapon at all, right? What I am for
what kind of weapon do you have?
It's just a simple little 45. Nothing special. Right. My point is that I don't shoot for sport. It's I do have a right to have it.
Right. But Second Amendment.
Second Amendment. Now that's kind of questionable, although it has been interpreted as you have the right. But if you read it, actually starts about you being in a militia, and I'm not in a militia. Okay. That's
well, we do need a militia. Okay.
No, but my point is that right now, if you had a problem, you probably is better off.
So it's about wording. It's about wording and interpretation.
Yeah.
So you'll say so.
And more importantly, though, what I am for is background checks. There should be no loopholes. My point is, you shouldn't be able to sell me a weapon out on the street corner, and I get access to this weapon. That should be illegal. Background checks is what I'm really, really for across the board. We should be raising the age. An 18-year-old should not be able to get an assault weapon. You should be at least 25, right? If you have any domestic violence, any record of domestic violence, any type of mental history, right? Mm-hmm. We should be able to restrict you from having a dangerous weapon. A dangerous weapon, right?
Now, how I'm glad I don't want to question this. Okay, you're running unopposed in the Democratic Party.
In the Democratic Party, right.
So you got to shoe in to get in for as the.
It's like I got to buy.
The buy to get in. Mm-hmm. Okay, now how do you feel your chances?
Chances are right.
Chances are because you got 2 Republicans running, right?
Yeah, and they tough.
They're tough. And one is the incumbent.
One is the incumbent, and the other one is the former attorney for Ken Paxton.
Now it's hard to beat an incumbent.
It's extremely hard. You know what? It's like in boxing, right? The champion, you do have to knock the champion out. Right. You can't just do well with the champion. You do have to knock the champion out. However, to put it in perspective, in 2018 and 2020, this same seat was held by a Democrat.
Okay.
Okay.
And what was the reason why it switched?
I'm glad you said it. It's called redistricting. Every 10 years we redrew, and basically they drew the incumbent at that time. They drew her out of the district.
Okay.
So she now lives in District 63. So in essence, she would have had to move back to 65 to continue to run. Right. So what happened is the person that she beat before, right? So she had a Democrat who won. They redrew. That Democrat no longer lived in the district. However, the Republican that ran against them, that person still lived in the district, ran again and won. So that's the person who is the incumbent today.
So is the line drawn up for Democratic or Republican or is it even?
Well, you know what? It's one of the strongest what I'll call Republican districts. But here's the interesting part: most of Texas now is slowly leaning what we're going to call. I like to call it purple. Purple. I like to call it purple. I like to call it purple, meaning there's a lot of red. But keep in mind, over the last 10 years, I told you there's been a lot of people coming, and those people have been coming from California.
Right? They mess up our state.
How they say that? How they say don't California my Texas.
I'm gonna be invited. Mess up our state.
Yeah, they say don't California my Texas. So what they're doing is they're very a lot more progressive.
Right. They're more involved into politics and trying to get policies changed.
Not to mention you have a growing, like I said, Hispanic community, which tends to lean Democratic. So what's happening in District 65 is over time it's getting bluer and bluer and bluer.
It's in the colony.
I mean, but it spans all over the colony.
So how far is your range?
Oh wow, I'm glad you said that. Lantana, Roanoke, there's a small piece of Fort Worth, there's a small piece of Dallas, a small piece of Flower Mound, there's some Carrollton, a piece of the colony, Draper.
I ain't never heard of Draper.
Yeah, well, here's what happened. See, so what they'll do is they will draw the districts, and if you look at it, it looks like a puzzle piece.
Okay.
But if you think about it, every 10 years they redraw these based on census data.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they redraw the district if they can redraw it. When I say they, if the party in control, which happens to be the Republican Party right now, if they can redraw it in a way that they can turn it into a Republican majority district, they will, and that's what they did. Mm-hmm. Now, the issue with that is that, keep in mind, if they redrew it in 2020, in 2030, we're going to be redrawing it again. So, my opinion, going back to my chances, I mean, I think I have what I call a fighter's chance. Fighter's chance. It is an uphill battle, but if I can turn out the Democratic votes that are there, if I can turn them out, then
how many people have registered?
Yeah, right now,
numbered registered in that district.
Well, what I will say is this, because it has shifted. Okay, this election, I'm anticipating about 78,000 people in District 65 voting. Now, that will be a record. Okay, but let me tell you why. Number one, I think the reproductive rights is going to be a big issue, and it's going to get a lot of women off the couch that wouldn't have necessarily. Number two, it's a presidential year. Right. So every time there's a presidential year, people tend to get out more engaged, right? I think it looks like the former President Trump is going to get the Republican nomination, and I think there are strong people on both sides of that. So that's going to bring out, in my opinion, a larger turnout. Okay, now that larger turnout actually, in my opinion, is good for Democrats because the Democrats in 65, if there were one that were going to probably sit it out, it would have been the Democrats that set it out. Right. I don't think they're going to sit it out this time. We have too many issues that people are really starting to get.
Okay, now this is your first time running for public office?
No, it's my second time. I ran for city council in the colony before.
Okay,
and I did not win.
You did not win. So this is your first time running for statewide.
That's right.
And so who have endorsed you? Have you been endorsed?
No, I don't have any endorsements yet. I've been talking to some people.
Okay.
Incumbents, I generally always get those endorsements first. Incumbent, whoever the incumbent is,
okay.
I mean, they already have a track record.
But that's on the Republican side. Even the Republican or the Democrat. So you're saying like companies, corporations?
Yeah, right, okay. Right. And so, for example, there have been some organizations that I've been speaking with that generally lean what I'll call left or progressive or Democratic, but I don't have any secure just yet. Keep in mind that I don't have a Democratic primary opponent. Okay, right. So, and because I want to put this in perspective, on March 5th, we'll be coming up on, and we have literally a battle royal in the Republican. You have an incumbent who has been endorsed by Governor Greg Abbott, running against her former treasurer, the Republican side. That's right. Her former treasurer, who was one of the people who defended Ken Paxton, and he endorsed him. So there's a lot of tension, on that side. So that's where the attention has been. If you read the newspaper articles, they mention me, and then they talk about the fight over here. You know what I mean? It's almost like the fight over there is more interesting.
Well, how long have you been thinking about running for this office?
You know what? When you own planning and zoning, and you look at how things are coming down with the state, you can't help but think about, like, man, why are we dealing with this? Man, one of these days I have to put my hat in the race. So I've been thinking about it for a while. Mm-hmm. Okay, when I say a while, I mean years. Been thinking about it, but it has to be the right time too, right?
You feel like this is the right time?
Definitely. Well, first of all, I will say this: District 65 will turn blue. It will turn Democrat.
Are you guaranteeing that? You putting a Clio on me?
Well, I mean, here's the Clio. I'm looking at the numbers.
You're looking at the numbers.
Right. I'm not talking.
You're planning and zoning.
Yeah, I'm looking
at. You can look at the numbers.
I can tell you that 1.6 million people are coming to Texas. Period. We already know that. Okay. I can also tell you that Texas is about 39% Hispanic today. That's going to be about 45, 46, 10 years from now. This has nothing to do with me.
Right.
Okay, these are just the numbers, right? As voters tend to get more educated, they tend to lean a lot more Democratic, and that's who you'll be attracting when you have these large companies that are attracting people to the area. So it'll get bluer and bluer and bluer. So the only question is when. That's the question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm running in this cycle now because I think it's a good time to really put together what I call a formidable campaign,
mm-hmm.
right? To really to show that there is a Democrat who can win, who knows how to win, who can run, who can execute on a campaign.
Not too far to the left or not too far to the right. Are you a center, or are you a center Democrat, or a far left or right?
It's interesting. I mean, full transparency. Back in the day, I was what I call a Colin Powell Republican. Back in the day.
Oh, because you like Colin Powell.
I mean, well, my point is that I was conservative in my thought, and for the record, most African Americans are very conservative in their thought, right? Conservative in their thought, but a lot of times very Democratic in their actions. Meaning, I want us all to be taken care of. I want everybody to pay their taxes. However, I want us to dot the I's and cross the T's. I don't want us to be frivolous too. Mm-hmm. So I consider myself a common sense guy. I mean, I'm a software developer by training, so I'm logical. You got to add up to me. Mm-hmm. I'm data driven. So when you talk about, like when you made reference to, the border, I say, show me the numbers, mm-hmm. right? And so I'm looking at, going back to the border issue, is not what Texas can do, but what can the country do? Because this is a federal border issue. Are we talking to Mexico? Are we working with Mexico? Right? How do we change our laws? Right? More importantly, what's going on in Venezuela right now that's causing people to leave Venezuela or Haiti and places like that to come up through Mexico? You see what I'm saying? So I'm kind of looking at it from the grand scheme of things.
Could it be because the border is wide open?
Well, no. Okay. The border is,
if they coming from those places to get around,
the border is no more wide open today.
Today now because Abbott has closed it.
Yeah, well, no, but it's no more open or closed today than it was, say, 3, 5, and 6 years ago. Here's what you do have. You have now, and just put yourself in their shoes. Okay, I want to go when I have the best chance of getting asylum. Well, you look, if you know that you're not going to get that with Donald Trump, so you don't go. Okay, you just don't go, right? Joe Biden, right? So he is going to at least try to consider my asylum claim, okay? Give me my day in court. Right? So it makes sense. It makes good logical sense. Oh, he may only be president for another 9 months. I better come now. So the surge is not because it's an open border. It's a surge because it makes good rational sense.
The political environment.
It makes if you're going to come, this is the time to come. And now that generally speaking, many of those people do not stay in Texas. They end up they stop in Texas.
They go to Illinois.
No, literally. Nebraska.
Illinois.
But they have family and what have you and stuff like that. And so I'm just looking at those types of numbers.
Okay, now since you're in zoning and planning and things, so you saw the economic compact. You know that the blacks has it's like 20% of black contractors. Black contractors, but only they get like 3% of the contracts.
Right, sure. Right.
If it's public, and then 1% if it's private.
Right.
Now, what could black contractors, for the better economics for our neighborhood or city to get those contracts? What are the biggest problems or issues you see in that?
Sure. Well, actually, I'm thinking about Thomas Boston did a great piece on affirmative action and how the city of Denver, for example, built the airport with Webb. Atlanta built an airport, and how many black millionaires came out of that, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look at it, Texas is right now destroying or undoing or unraveling and banning DEI. So we got to put those types of programs back in place. The way the way we help small businesses, right, is that we put structures in place that guide taxpayer dollars to support those businesses. And that's what we have to do. But keep in mind, we did have those policies. Those policies are being undone today. Okay.
Well, my time is just about up. I think I saw the man giving me the thing. But, I gotta get that. Detrick. I'm going to get that last part. DeBurr. Right. Detrick DeBurr. We met, in the thing, but I'm trying to get, I'm not good with names. All that good stuff. But.
That's all right. Well, I plan to be memorable.
Okay. And, it was great talking with you and finding some of the issues. I see you're more passionate about education.
That's important. That's the key.
Very key. Yeah, education definitely is the key. And so you're running for Texas House District 65.
That's right.
and you are the only Democratic opponent that's running.
That's right.
And so you got two Republicans that you're running against if you go into the major elections. This is an election year, so therefore we need to get out the vote. Pick your candidate. I'll tell the person, I can't tell you who to vote for, but I tell you do your due diligence, research your candidates, and make a sound decision from there. So I just want to say thank you for coming.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure.
Thank you for being a part of the
NDG.
NDG.
All right.
All right.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.